The war in Europe was collapsing. Roads were choked with wounded soldiers, abandoned equipment, and medical units desperately trying to escape the front. Among them were German Red Cross nurses, exhausted beyond imagination, marching on blistered feet and carrying stretchers long after their strength was gone. Many had not slept in days. Some had not eaten properly in nearly a week. And when they finally reached American lines, they braced for anger, for punishment, for humiliation. Instead, something they didn't expect happened. Stay until the end to learn what these German nurses told American officers in their first hours of captivity, and why it was one of the most heartbreaking moments of the entire war. The collapse. Spring 1945. The German military was disintegrating. Hospitals that once held hundreds were now overflowing with thousands. Nurses, many barely in their 20s, worked non-stop through bombardments, smoke and chaos. They changed dressings in muddy barns. They carried amputees on makeshift stretchers. They lived on watery soup and whatever bread the retreating units left behind. One nurse later recalled, "We had stopped counting days. We only counted how many men we could still save." But even that hope collapsed. As American and British forces swept across Germany, entire medical units were cut off, surrounded or abandoned. Some nurses marched until their legs gave out. Others were discovered in field hospitals with no electricity, no bandages, and no food left to give wounded soldiers who begged for water. By the time American troops reached them, many of the nurses were trembling from exhaustion. The moment of surrender. When the nurses finally surrendered, most expected something terrible. They had been told the Allies would punish them, mistreat them, or worse. Some of the women were crying before a single American had even spoken to them. Others held their hands up slowly, terrified. Some pleaded, "Please end our suffering," not to beg for mercy, but in fear of what would await them in captivity after seeing the raw brutality of the war. And then nothing happened. No shouting, no threats, no anger. Instead, American medics immediately asked, "Are you wounded? Does anyone need help? Can you walk?" For nurses who had spent months treating the dying while starving themselves, this simple compassion was overwhelming. One American soldier looked at the group, saw how thin they were, and said, "Get these women to the medical tent, now." Some of the German nurses broke down in tears right there, their first meal in days. Inside the American aid station, the nurses were given something they had not seen in ages: clean water, fresh blankets, real medical supplies, and food. The Americans did not know that many of the nurses' stomachs had shrunk from hunger. They simply brought them hot stew, boiled potatoes, and bread. Some of the nurses refused at first. They truly believed they were not allowed to touch Allied food. Others tried to hide pieces of bread under their coats, thinking they must save it for later, because surely this was all they would receive. When an American medic noticed this, he gently told them, "You don't need to hide the food. There is more." For several nurses, that sentence was too much. The fear, the hunger, the relief, it all came at once. They cried openly while eating for the first time in days. A shocking discovery. Soon after, the Americans took them to a proper medical station. And this moment would change the way these nurses saw the world. For months they had worked with shortages, old needles, worn bandages, morphine saved for the worst cases, and operations done with almost nothing. The American station was the opposite. Sterile surfaces, cold metal instruments, fresh gauze stacked in boxes, enough medicine for everyone. One nurse later said, "We could not understand how an army could have so much. We had nothing." Another whispered, "Your wounded are lucky." For the first time since the war began, they were surrounded by order instead of chaos, by supplies instead of shortages, by calm voices instead of artillery. The transformation. Over the next days, the nurses changed rapidly. Their faces filled out. They slept like they hadn't slept in months. They no longer trembled when spoken to. Some even laughed for the first time since the war began. American medics were surprised at how skilled many of the nurses were, despite the terrible conditions they had worked under. In return, the nurses were shocked by how respectfully they were treated. One of them told an American sergeant, "You treat us like human beings. We were not expecting that." After the war. In time, the nurses were transferred to internment centers, questioned and later released. Most without charges, because they had simply been medical staff doing their duty. Many returned home to ruins, hospitals destroyed, families gone, a nation unrecognizable. But some never forgot those first moments in American custody. The food, the blankets, the kindness, the relief. This is a true World War II story, because sometimes there is always a possibility that even in history's darkest moments, human beings can still surprise each other. Do you agree? Let us know in the comments and subscribe for more true World War II stories.